President Trump is back at his golf club in West Palm Beach, Florida today. Yesterday, the president made the first public appearance of his vacation, visiting a fire station. While stopping to praise first responders for their service, the president also took a moment to praise himself, touting his accomplishments during his first year in office.
But one of his so-called accomplishments might not be historically accurate. Mola Lenghi is at the White House with more.
We want to give these people credit for the great job they do. So thank you all very much.
President Trump visited firefighters in West Palm Beach Wednesday afternoon, thanking them for their service. He also paused to pat himself on the back.
The country is really, it's a big, big, beautiful ship that we're turning around. We have signed more legislation than anybody. We broke the record of Harry Truman.
A CBS News analysis shows the president has signed more than 90 bills into law since he took office. That number is hundreds fewer than the nearly 700 pieces of legislation that one bill tracking website counts as signed by President Kennedy during the same period. President Bill Clinton and George H.W. Bush also signed more than 200 bills into law during the same time. Mr. Trump also took to Twitter, taking credit for an 83% increase in arrests for members of the MS-13 gang and reducing the number of ISIS fighters from 35,000 to 1,000 since he took office. Fresh off his legislative tax victory, President Trump plans to hold a strategy session with Republican congressional leaders at Camp David the first weekend in January. Spokesmen for both Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and House Speaker Paul Ryan confirmed they will attend. The president is hoping to notch more legislative achievements leading up to the midterm elections. Lawmakers face a number of issues when they return to Washington, ranging from immigration to the budget. Mola Lenghi, CBS News, the White House.
Chip Reid is traveling with the president, and he joins us now from West Palm Beach, Florida. Now, Chip, we're just listening to the president, who's basically bragging about his legislative accomplishments, even claiming he signed more than any other president. Can you fact check that for us?
Yeah, well, you just heard part of the fact check that the president signed more than 90 bills. He said what he said was that he's signed more bills than any president since Truman. It is simply false. I think that the fact checkers are going to be saying pants on fire and four Pinocchios on that one because JFK signed almost 700 and Clinton and George H.W. Bush signed almost 200. So it's simply false. It makes you wonder where he got that information.
And Chip, the other day, the White House published a long list of accomplishments from the president's first year. They mentioned tax cuts, pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, placing Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court, and making progress in Homeland Security. How is the president doing in meeting his campaign promises?
Well, you know, we could spend about 2 hours talking about that. There were a lot of promises, but on the key ones, certainly the record is mixed. On the one hand, you just mentioned a number of things that are kept campaign promises, at least to some degree. And in addition to that, he has pretty dramatically cut back regulation on business, in particular environmental regulations, and created a much friendlier environment for business. And he promised that he would do that. On the other hand, the big failure is the failure to repeal and replace Obamacare. Who knows where that's going to go next year? But in many ways, the Democrats have the political upper hand on that, and if nothing gets done, they believe it's really going to hurt the Republicans in the 2018 elections. But also build that wall. Hasn't even come close to happening, and Mexico pay for it. No movement in that direction whatsoever. Also on tax cuts, even though it's an accomplishment, a kept promise, he promised that it would primarily benefit the middle class and it would not benefit people like himself. But in fact, most of the money in that bill goes to corporations and the wealthy, people like Donald Trump.
Well, Chip, President Trump says he's spending this week in Florida to work on his 2018 agenda. And the next weekend, he's going to be meeting with GOP leaders Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan at Camp David to iron out some of those details. And it better be a very hot iron. What do you expect, since you know what's kind of going on there, what do you expect for next year's agenda? And are they going to meet in the middle somewhere?
Yeah, well, it's kind of reading tea leaves to some degree, but we do know that infrastructure is either at or near the top of his agenda. And he said it's going to be very easy in the Oval Office about a week ago when he signed that tax bill, but it's not going to be easy at all. The Democrats are calling for a trillion, not a billion, $1 trillion in government spending on infrastructure. They say it would take $2 trillion to really do the job, but they'd settle for $1 trillion. The Republicans only want 1/5 of that, $200 billion. And they say that by doing public-private partnerships with that as seed money between government and local government, state and local, between business and state and local governments, they can get the same effect. Democrats say that is absolutely nonsense, and they're going to need the Democrats on this. So it's going to be tough on infrastructure. Also, immigration, the Dreamers, they want to do something about these children who came here not on their own, and Democrats are saying they're not going to do anything with the Republicans unless they can get that Dreamer bill through. And then there's welfare reform, and they want to fix Medicare and Medicaid. You know, there's a whole big dream list, but it's going to be very tough in an election year when they're going to need Democratic help.
Indeed. Chip Reid in West Palm Beach, Florida. Thank you.